Okay, we're back again on the Awakenings Podcast. So excited today to be here with Dr. James and Holly. They are the founders of All Things Vitality, Health and Wellness in Northwest Ohio Ketamine Clinic. Let's just jump right into this fireside chat. Doc, so happy to have you here, man.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about ketamine today.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. Let's just talk about the history, right, of ketamine.
Well, ketamine was discovered and patented back in the early 60s, I believe, as a potent analgesic and anesthetic. It's had wide application in anesthesia and, of course, in veterinary medicine, and remains still a very useful tool in that setting because it's a powerful analgesic. Unlike opioids, it doesn't suppress respirations. So we've used it in small amounts, occasionally standalone, and it's still a good drug for a lot of different situations, from pediatrics to adult anesthesia, or even like in the emergency rooms or other places where you need some pain relief and some sedation without respiratory depression. So that's the founding part of fundamental part, and that is what it is indicated for in terms of FDA labeling. But over time, and almost by accident, it's become a far more useful medicine in the treatment of certain behavioral health conditions and other problems.
Beautiful. So what are some of the primary mental health conditions that ketamine treatment is used for to help and those type of things?
Well, it started out being used as a third line treatment for treatment-resistant depression. And it was almost discovered by accident, the fact that this helps, because people who were receiving ketamine who were depressed, but ketamine for other reasons, found out that not only did their depression got better too. So investigators over the last 10 or 15 years started looking at this, and it became, okay, here's a new tool we have to help keep people out of the hospital, suicidal ideation, and break that cycle, and when they're resistant to other medications, to help restore their quality of life. Unlike most other antidepressants, it's very fast acting. First of all, it's delivered intravenously. Generally, you can do it nasally and sublingually, but usually intravenously in context of treating depression. And because of success, the effect is so good. If you don't respond to depression, doesn't mean you don't have ketamine doesn't mean you don't have behavioral health problems, but maybe it's deeper than just depression alone. Very rapid acting, and so it's actually the algorithm is moving up. Why wait so late in the treatment course? Why don't we bring this in as an earlier option for patients? Maybe get them off some of the medications we know maybe have some long-term issues, such as SSRIs and certain antidepressant medications, simplify their lives, and it's been quite effective in that regard.
Sure. So how does it work in the brain to create those positive effects?
Well, that's an interesting story. There's a lot of debate. I think the first theories was that it is not related to the primary effect of ketamine as an analgesic. Okay. It must be doing something else. That's pretty well understood. There's a good pile of information that maybe it's one of the metabolites. And even that's been debunked by some. Wow. So the bottom line is we don't really know how it helps depression. The basic theory, and we'll maybe get into this a little bit, is that it's more of this general effect on the mind, opening up the mind, releasing past traumas and shadows, and cleaning out the business, like changing the oil. Yeah. And that may be why it works so fast, because you don't have to have a primary pharmacologic effect to have the benefit from ketamine therapy for depression. We mentioned depression, of course, but moving that up, there's people with subclinical depression. It may benefit from this as well, as well as other behavioral health conditions.
Yeah. So speaking about that, there are a lot of myths, right? A lot of people talk about ketamine. There's a negative connotation about it, the negative effects. Speak to some of the myths, right? I have family members that I've spoken to about it. I had a brother who he died of an overdose, and I believe that he struggled with long-time depression and, opioid addiction. And I was talking to my stepmother about how I believe that ketamine could have helped save his life. And she said, well, no, ketamine, people use it to get high. It's a recreational drug. And there's so many different myths. There's a lot of ways it can be administered. Just talk about some of the myths.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of pharmaceutical medications out there that can be abused on the street.
Okay.
Benzodiazepines, Valium, psychostimulants, Adderall, someone mentioned earlier, Ativan, and narcotics, of course, which cause thousands and thousands of deaths almost every week. And yes, ketamine, if your intention is just to have a buzz, you can get a buzz with ketamine just like any other drug. And it does have some street use there. Okay. So when we talk about clinically, though, we do setting and scene. It's an entirely different experience than someone who just wants to take ketamine off the street as a party drug. And that's certainly not the intention of a ketamine clinic. So the myths are real. There's just street value out there, and there are people using it. I will tell you this. Depending on your source, ketamine doesn't depress respirations, but it doesn't mean it can't get you into trouble. If you do too much ketamine, it's an anesthetic. You can essentially be unconscious. Sure. Can't be driving, stuff like that. So it can be very dangerous out on the street, and we don't recommend that use at all, sure, of course. Sure.
And that's part of our protocol, is that those persons that are coming in for treatment have a driver. They're not allowed to leave without a driver after the experience, and they're really not allowed to drive for 24 hours. So it's to go home, rest, and start the integration process. And that's part of that healing, identifying the root cause, the stress or the trauma that maybe occurred in that developmental stage between 0 and 7 years old, identifying that, looking at ways to heal that trauma or stress and release. Because oftentimes those are the things that are holding that patient or client back. And so that's our goal in administering the ketamine, but then more importantly is that integration process.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So
if you come in and want nothing more than get an IV started and get some IV ketamine, you're going to have an experience. Mm-hmm. But it may not be a clinically relevant experience. It could be a party experience. Mm. Well, that's not what we do. So the idea is that if this mind-opening aspect in something we call neuroplasticity, actually in animal models with psychedelics has now been proven, your body can create new connections. Wow. You can create new experiences. You can have new and fresh ideas. You can become a more productive and more involved in your community, and you really can walk around life feeling better about yourself and those around. But you have to set the intention.
Yeah.
You enter this with, what is it? I'm looking for something that's holding me back. I want to take the next step in healing, whether it's depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, that's also effective, OCD, or just stuck in life. Just stuck in life. You can maybe high functioning, but you just can't quite crest that hill. If you set the intentions, not expectations, there's a difference, and you go into the experience and let your mind open up, and then you have to integrate afterwards. This is through journaling and working with a coach or other behavioral health specialists to reflect on the experience and model it as you continue this. Because we've done in a series. You can't fix anything with one infusion.
Wow.
So we're really talking about, it's vary from patient to patient, but a series of infusions and maybe some maintenance experiences down the line that you really can have an amazing outcome. In fact, it gets, I begin to think that most people could really benefit from the ketamine experience.
Sure.
well,
You don't have to be profoundly ill to do it.
I got you.
and to speak to that point, through our class that we're taking now, it's called Being True to You. A lot of what we're discussing is, again, those traumas or those stress events that then create these negative feedback loops in the brain. And so the goal is to stop the negative feedback loop, whether that's I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough or whatever that negative feedback loop. And like Dr. James said, is creating that neuroplasticity where you're creating new pathways and creating new ways of thinking. I am worthy. I am good enough. I can do this. And so rather than being stuck in those maladaptive coping mechanisms, whether that's overutilization of alcohol or drugs or overeating or smoking or whatever that case may be for that individual, ketamine provides that opportunity to create a new thinking pattern, and create that new neuroplasticity in the brain.
Makes sense.
Yeah, instead of intentions to get over post-traumatic stress disorder, get rid of those past traumas so you can live your life on a daily basis. Depression, dysthemia, it's great, but setting intentions, as Holly just alluded to reduce your cravings or bad habits. Could be overeating, could be sugar, certainly could be alcohol, smoking, and maybe the most important one is opioid use. We have a pain clinic, and I spent so much of my time trying to get people off opioids, and they develop this opioid use disorder because they become so attached to the medication they can't separate their pain pills from their pain.
Yeah.
And you really can, and they're not effective long-term opioids because of drug tolerance.
Yeah.
Well, ketamine is a very powerful tool in helping people in two ways. Through its primary drug effect on what we call the NMDA receptors, don't worry about technical details, will make somebody more sensitive to opioids, so that you can help reduce the drug tolerance in somebody who can't get off opioids because they need them. You can make effective at a lower dose. But more importantly, it also can, through that same mechanism, help people get off their opioids. And you can become, with that intention, it does help people in the weaning process to become free of that horrible burden of taking narcotics on a daily basis.
That is amazing. So when we talk about the approach to ketamine and what individuals who are looking to take this journey, let's talk about the expectation, right? What should I expect from this process, and how do I prepare for it? I know when you talk about going through the actual journey that intention setting is important, but do I start to research before? Is there information that you guys offer? Are there links to certain websites to research? Where does one start? Because there is so much information out there. So where do I start, and what do I expect?
Yes, we do have it on the website, working on improved content. There's a page of frequently asked questions, and we have a simple I see 2-page sheet about what is I'll use the word psychedelic experience, because there is a psychedelic component to ketamine.
Okay.
The experience, once underneath, and by the way, you stay awake, you're conscious, and you're arousable and talking. But we do like to set the setting and scene as most important to integrate.
Sure.
So that we have all the mention up front, and we have people come in. Yeah, you don't want to have a full stomach. You want to be dressed in loose-fitting clothes.
Sure.
And part of the experience is turning inward. You want your mind to be free.
Yeah.
So it's really good to be in a quiet place. Masks are really helpful. Integrative music. Music that kind of stimulates the mind, various frequencies, and we're still experimenting with that. There are some nice playlists from some major research centers that are available. So we have little iPod type things that you can listen with curated music that helps with experience. Piece of relaxation. I mean, this is the time to focus on yourself. You set the intentions, I want to get better. You have to believe that you will get better, and you set that intention, you need to relax. So deep breathing. We start the session just with a little bit of box breathing. And then during the experience, you'll be checked on periodically. And the experience lasts from an hour to 2 hours, depending on what we decide to individualize. And then there's a little bit of recovery period after that. And we will adjust the infusion rate to the client's comfort level.
Yeah.
The idea is have enough of a medication effect that you kind of dissociate a little bit. That's the unique thing that ketamine does. Kind of separates the mind from the body. They work separately then. And that's how it kind of opens. It's an unusual experience. It can be very beautiful. The first time around could be a little scary. So we take time explaining that. You're going to see some things. That's part of that. Was part of the work, part of the healing process. Sure. There's some things that may be hidden in there that you hadn't thought about for a long time. Maybe never even knew.
Wow.
Some people, it's an ethogen. Some people connect to higher powers. I believe in energy fields surrounding all of us. We're all electricity. We all are full of energy. I think the energy permeates our surroundings. And of course, many people believe in deities, the divine, God. Absolutely. And through these techniques, you can open your mind and reconnect and find that spiritual pathway, which can be very powerful for some clients in the healing process as well.
No, that makes sense. So how do you determine, what determines whether a potential client is, ready for ketamine, right? I think about myself. I wouldn't say I suffer with depression or anxiety often, but sometimes if I don't do my intention setting, journal every day, sometimes I get burnt out. Like I was just getting over a cold. My son got sick and I didn't feel, that same energy to get up and do the things that I need to do. And I feel like it would be good for me, but how do you guys determine whether or not, you are a candidate that is ready for ketamine? How does that work?
So it's intentions.
Okay.
Because I think anything.
See a clinical psychologist first.
Well, for recruiter passion, we do like to have people who are truly battling behavioral health issues.
Okay.
To be involved with behavioral health specialists in conjunction with our assisted therapy here.
Okay.
But if you go from that group to people who are just like you mentioned, and anybody says their life's perfect, they're lying to themselves. In this course we're talking about suffering. Suffering is part of the human nature, and that's a broad spectrum term, right? So if you look at that, almost anybody may need a reset, an opportunity to grow and experience. But if you come to us, you need to have a purpose.
Sure.
It may be just depression. It may be, I'm just kind of stuck, work. I'm punching the clock 5 days a week. I feel like my quality of life is beginning to slip a little bit. I'm not getting projects completed. No, that could be dysthymia. We can address that. But if someone comes in and says, I'd just like to have ketamine, no, because you'd have an experience, but it's not a clinical one. And our goal is to improve quality of life, not just to give people a little bit of a journey for fun.
Yeah,
that's not the role.
So being a creative, right? As an artist, I'm an artist, musician. I'm working on some projects now that are heavy projects, and sometimes the creativity can get a little cramped because I'm either comparing, is this going to be good enough here or there? And I meet these blocks that can turn into somewhat of a high functioning depression, right? So I may not want to go in and complete a project. I may have it in mind. As soon as I get ready to turn the computer on, start recording, my mind goes blank, or I'm like, I can't do. How would that work for someone like me?
Well, Ken, that's, I think we've all been in that space at one point or another, right?
Sure.
And that's the beauty of of psychedelic type therapy, ketamine being the one we're talking about today. In fact, the only legal psychedelic we have, is that through that neuroplasticity, it kind of getting rid of a few cobwebs, ideas can pop in your mind. You may wake up the next morning, you open that computer, and you get your cup of Java.
Yeah.
And watch out, because here's come up, flying fingers.
Yeah.
And people have had that experience, and that you can, be more creative or more productive following these infusions. And again, they may not just one. You may say, "God, that worked great." Maybe do it again a week later, and then periodically, if you get caught, you can do these sorts of things. What do you think, Holly? Yeah, right. I mean, it's just.
Well, as they're discussing this type of therapy, there are so many persons, especially on the West Coast, from filmmakers to those writing a book or, again, creating a new product.
Sure.
That, again, gets stuck. And it can create a sense of depression or frustration. And it's really looking at having an infusion and having that opportunity to create new pathways, things that you haven't maybe even thought about or considered. And so these things oftentimes come after that treatment or that infusion, and then the integration process as those ideas pop up. And again, really the integration is probably the most important piece of the whole experience, really. Not necessarily the infusion, it's the integration afterwards.
Yeah.
And they say at least with our training, that could be 6 to 8 weeks after one infusion that you still are integrating what's coming up and possibilities.
Yeah. So what role does the integration play after the ketamine treatment, after I get the session? What is the role that it's playing?
It's just training your mind. Okay. So you've had this experience. You may not completely understand it at first. What did I see? Then maybe you do a second infusion, and then you do your integration. You don't have to do it after every infusion, but you need to journal it right now.
Sure.
Is to try to go back and reflect and address what you saw and what you felt, and to put it into action or to wash it away.
Sure.
So to reflect back on the experience, it was just like learning anything. You're learning about yourself here a little bit. Your mind's opening up. You develop new pathways. Unless you're brilliant, I got to study to take a test. I can't just read the journal, right?
Yes, sir.
So that information that you may get from reading a book or reading a textbook or an article, you need to integrate it in order to apply it into your by practice.
Sure.
So it's the same sort of thing here. You need that little self-study and reflection in order to integrate your experience into your daily life and to get the most benefit out of the ketamine infusion. And again, we're talking about more than one infusion here. So the integration process is a continuum. And as Holly says, the ketamine infusions can stop for a period of time. Yeah. Maybe go revisit again in a month or two. Mm-hmm. But you can't stop journaling and keeping the process going. You can extend that by focusing, taking that little time through meditation, and journaling and time for yourself.
And that's where you and I have talked about these rituals are so important. How you begin your day and end your day. And we can integrate after an entire day of working, what went really well and what didn't, and how can I change, or what could I have done differently to make the day more productive or flow a little bit better. And again, that intention setting, that breathing, the meditation, and really being still and looking inside, like what's coming up for me right now, for any experience, it's important to integrate.
Sure.
And I just learned about integration, but I'm like, gosh, this should be the most important tool that we all use. Yes. And again, the meditation, the journaling is what really helps. I know for me, at least, journaling is one of the most powerful tools that I have. And once you get into that practice, so much more starts to come through. But again, with setting goals and intentions, and then looking at what are the really positive things and what are the not so positive, and then weaving those together, because we'll never be able to change the negative. So accepting it, healing it, and moving on, and then bringing more of the positive in is truly what we're looking to do.
Beautiful. Yeah. So through what you guys do at Vitality, everything that's happening with Awakenings, how are you guys set up to support the long-term success for the mental and physical well-being, mainly that mental health component of the individuals who come through, right? Because I may go through a session after the intention settings and after I get done with the integration. What is the long-term things that you guys have in place or are putting in place to help support those people throughout their journey? Right. Even as it pertains to, okay, if I go through it and now I bring my mother into it or my child, what are some of the things that you guys have?
Well, that's the mission of Vitality in Awakenings, because many of these people, maybe even high-functioning executives looking to try to finish that project, come in, you find out they're drinking a lot, they got a bad diet, they're still smoking cigarettes, they have a high stressful environment. They need to invest in themselves. And so Holly, who's our executive director here for that, we have a lot of tools to improve your overall quality of life and health. Nutritional, smoking cessation, exercise, hyperbarics, even aesthetics, so you feel better about yourself by the way you look. Yeah. And, proper use of supplements. You can spend a lot of money and be wasting. But there are some things that I think are pretty well supported, particularly the detoxifying the body with antioxidant type therapy. And so that's part of it. And then, we have these podcasts, and we want people to be plugged in. We want people invested. We want people to come back.
Yeah.
We want their feedback.
Yes.
One more word about integration, though. I was just thinking about it because it's so important to everything. You take a golf lesson.
Mm-hmm.
You go out and you have a good lesson, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to go out and play and things go, no, you got to practice. You got to integrate those new thoughts until they become natural.
Yeah.
And then you can take another lesson and add another layer on it. And then you go out and apply it. But if you don't take the time to integrate that lesson through practice, thinking, even breath work and golf support, right?
Sure, absolutely.
The relaxation,
Yeah.
stress reduction. It's not you wasted your money on the lesson.
Yeah.
And so the same thing is true with this ketamine infusion. Or anything. If you don't take the time, if you just take that 1 hour or 2 hour experience and then walk away from it, you had a nice experience, but you didn't really accomplish the intended task.
Sure.
Unless you go back and practice it.
Yeah.
And then the repeat infusion. So it's kind of just like that.
Through that ritual.
But health maintenance is
Yeah.
critical here too. You got to take care of your body first.
Yes.
And, you can almost say if you're going to come in and do all the stuff, you're not willing to give up smoking or you try. I mean, maybe, we can use this to help you, but you got to want it to keep doing this stuff. Yeah.
Well, we had so many patients that are from the VA that are vets that have seen really traumatic things, lost some of their friends and best friends on the battlefield, and sometimes even civilians and when these individuals come in, they're just distraught and really just have very little ability to have great eye contact or engage in conversation because they have so much PTSD and depression. And after a series of infusions and integration, I can tell you a couple of individuals in particular. There was one young man that came in with his mom. He was 25 years old and, again, severe PTSD. And when he first came in, there was zero communication. The mom did most of the communication, and she was so upset because she said, I sent him, he went to go help fight for the United States, and unfortunately came back just a shell of who he really was. And after the infusions and the integration, he was he was back to himself. And she came in crying and with so much gratitude. And we thought something had happened to him. And instead she said, I'm just so grateful, tears of gratitude that she had her son back. And then we had another individual who was 55.
Yeah.
And he also had, been away. I'm not sure exactly where he was deployed, but came in and was disheveled and really just terribly depressed and had major PTSD and just kept thinking about these experiences that he witnessed and really could not shake it. And it was after the ketamine infusion and the integration process, he came back and we didn't even recognize him. He had shaved his beard and was well-dressed and articulate, and again, filled with gratitude because he felt so much better and was able, those trauma or traumatic experiences or stressful experiences are never going to go away. You just identify ways to heal that and release it so it's not part of that negative feedback loop on a daily basis. Wow. So then you're able to weave the positive and the negative and really continue to function in a more healthful, beautiful way.
That is amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I got one more question. I probably should have asked this in the beginning, but before we go, and this is for Dr. James, but also Holly would love to hear from you as well if you'd like to answer. But when I hear you speak, right, and been working with you guys for this time, learned so much about you guys and what you do, my question is, why? Doc, you have 21 plus years of experience pain management, and like you talked about, you are trying now, even on the pain management side, to get people away from, being addicted to these painkillers and things. That's a very lucrative business for doctors, right? Scripts, right? And you've lived a blessed life. You guys are blessed and able to support your family and love what you do, but there's a lot more money that, you know, some would say, especially physicians and doctors would say, you guys are leaving on the table, but you put this hard work in, you're studying, you guys are taking new courses and learning and coming up with new ways to invest in yourselves and education, but back into the community to help people live better lives. And I think it's good just to share in this moment for people to hear from you guys your why, because it's a labor of love. It's caring about your fellow man and woman. And I think it's amazing work, but I just love for you guys to share like your why.
Well, it's all flowing from the beginning. Pain. Very frustrated about some other people in the community. In our own pain center, when we first opened up, was kind of a block shop. You come in, you got a pre-epidural steroids, go home. They said, this is not the right way to do it. So I couldn't get it accomplished initially, so I went independent with the idea that there has to be a better way of helping people in chronic pain. So we set it all up, had great intentions, set up what it's now called Vitality, and first called Flow Enhanced Therapy and Wellness. We had nutrition classes, we had smoking cessation classes, exercise classes, restorative yoga classes, all this stuff to try to get people excited about themselves, get away from drugs. And yes, I'm an interventionist. There are some things that we need to do. Surgery is important sometimes. We can, but again, if you really want to get better and you're suffering from degenerative spine, you got to invest in yourself.
Sure. You
got to. So, and boy, it was such a frustrating thing. I couldn't get anybody to buy in. First of all, some of the practitioners I work with weren't buying in either.
Sure.
And so much you tie you and dock it for dollars that you lose the real mission of medicine. Wow. And to me, the gratification is from helping people more than, and we've done plenty of stuff that doesn't make any financial sense, I have to say.
Of course.
And so it's a lifelong mission. I am not retiring until we get this right.
Wow.
Okay? I'm not. I mean, because until I convince this community, at least my group of people I'm taking care of, how important it is to invest in yourself and how much better your life can be. Now, as far as ketamine goes, obviously depression was rampant in pain, and we were using ketamine already for certain pain conditions where it can be quite effective.
Yeah.
Neuropathic pain, something called CRPS, subject for another webinar.
Sure.
So we tied it in there, and I got interested in it. So we started the first one in Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan, first ketamine clinic anywhere, you know.
Wow.
And I did it to try to give people an opportunity to heal, to get better, because it's really hard to invest in yourself if you're really clinically depressed. They're tied together. Yeah. What do you mean I got it? No, let's just roll it all into one. And so it was just a flow of what we can do to improve people's quality of life. And now, more that we've studied this, something I didn't really realize until a little over a year ago, is of how powerful the psychedelic experience actually is in terms of what we talk about, opening up the mind and cleaning this new connectivity. And I didn't even know that when we started the ketamine. I was looking at the pharmacological side effects. So I continue to learn. Holly and I continue to learn. Like I say, we're taking a 600-hour course on this stuff too, which I don't know. I got a discussion section tonight. I better get through the lecture. Yeah. So, we were really investing time. Sure. And it's not all compensated. We're doing it because we really do want to make a difference.
Absolutely.
And you get some pushback. You'd think there'd be a lineup outside the door because this is that good, and how to get the message out, which is the reason why we're doing this podcast.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of people in this community who could really benefit and do this safely,
sure,
legally, and effectively.
Wow.
So, and again, it's got to be an integrated approach. Health and wellness is critical to this whole process too. You can't just get epidural steroids and get better. You can't just get ketamine and get better. You got to look at the whole person.
Sure.
Well, and I think, again, so many people may not even realize why they do what they do. So again, they have this stress or traumatic experience, and then they're observing the persons that they're being raised by and or possibly other experiences at school, and they may start a maladaptive process. So whether that's smoking, some people start smoking at a young age. It could be, again, eating when they feel stressed. They're eating food that feels like comfort food that may not be the most nutritious. There maybe then, again, we just heard from a few individuals on our training program that they started drinking at a young age, drinking at, 13, 14, because it was available in the household, or while their parents were having a celebration, they were sipping it while they were helping catch up. And then before they know it, they're in this process, they're in this habit, and it may start slowly, and then it increases. And so the goal is really to identify what is that stressful or traumatic situation, how can I heal it and release it, and how can I bring in new healthy habits and rituals to replace the ones that are not so healthy, right? And so that's another thing. I mean, we have so many people who come in, they want to lose weight, but they don't want to change their lifestyle. So can I just get the Ozempic, or can I get the Trizepatide? I don't want to change. I still want to eat cheeseburgers and chicken wings and pizza, but they don't want to look at the whole plan. And even so in pain management, we've seen this for years. Some of the patients, and this is not all, but some of them with pain or fibromyalgia often stems from, it could be something that happened when they were younger that they're now storing somatically in their body.
Wow.
That they may not even realize. And so it's interesting, and they're really able to get help and benefits from this therapy. And at the end of the day, we're in this to really make people better, body, mind, and spirit.
Absolutely.
And so persons come to us in all different areas of their journey. So it may be that they are midlife and want bioidentical hormone replacement, and then they realize that we have these other treatments or modalities. Or it could be that pain patient that's coming in with depression, or coupled with PTSD or other types of issues, that this modality can really help heal the pain. Wow. So there's different reasons that people come, and our goal is to meet them in where they are in the journey and provide different modalities that can really help benefit them.
That's absolutely amazing. Well, again, I personally want to say, and I tell you this all the time, but to you, Doc, it's the first time, it's a pleasure sharing this platform with you and having you here. Looking forward to more conversations. But thank you guys for all that you do. We live in a world where there's so much turmoil going on, so many people that are doctors or are in places of leadership and, really have the ability to bring about change in a positive way, that are using their education, their platform for negativity. So I just want to give you guys your flowers live. And for those of you who are just now tuning in to the Awakenings Fireside Chat in our podcast, please like, share, subscribe. There's going to be plenty more information that is coming. 2025, we got new things happening with Awakenings. Dr. James has new information. Holly and them, they're studying every day to learn more, to bring new things to the community to help us be better. We look forward to seeing you guys again soon here on the Awakenings Podcast.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Thaddeus.
Absolutely. As you die.
Thank you.